including requesting assistance from security agents as appropriate. Number 10, INEC should take additional measures to enforce requirements for political parties to submit financial reports and monitor campaign expenditures, such as collaborating with the National Broadcasting Commission to track campaign expenditures on media airtime and advertisements. Number 11, INEC, political parties, and civil society should begin voter education efforts early in the election process. INEC should coordinate with other government agencies responsible for voter education, such as the National Orientation Agency, to inform voters about the election process and encourage collection of PVCs.
Thank you so much, Deputy Director Cox. And next, if you guys would like to move the microphone.
That is number 12 on the recommendations agenda. Political parties should sign and abide by the first peace accord facilitated by the National Peace Committee in November, which include pledges against violence, vandalism, harassment, hate speech, and vote buying. Number 13, political parties should hold candidates, party members, and party agents accountable for participating in vote buying or inducement. Number 14, political parties should train their agents on proper polling and unit layout, prohibited behavior under the law, and their important roles during the collation process, and ensure that all agents have proper INEC credentials. Number 15, political parties and candidates should comply with financial disclosure requirements required by the 2022 Electoral Act. On women, youth, persons with disabilities, and internally displaced persons. And that is number 16. INEC should publish disaggregated data on registered persons with disabilities, that is the PWDs, before elections, and invest in collecting data to map the location and type of assistance needed for PWDs, and audit polling unit layouts to ensure compliance with the INEC polling unit schema. Number 17, INEC should also implement assistive voting cubicles for PWDs, and with this adjustment, INEC should consider modifications to the voting cubicles that protect ballot secrecy. Number 18, parties should implement their own gender inclusivity commitment as they set up their campaign committees. Number 19, political parties should prioritize material and financial resources to women and youth candidates who emerge from the 2022 primaries. 20, INEC should invest in assisting internally displaced persons, that is the IDPs, to transfer their registration area to their new location so that they can vote. And they should also try to update the IDP framework, taking into consideration lessons learned from 2019 and implement the surveys of IDP camps required in the framework, and also prioritize the sensitization of the new framework with government and polling officials. Last but not least, on security. INEC and security forces should anticipate and plan for areas where violence may be used to suppress votes or change outcomes. The government should formally, that is number 22, government should formally address the role that informal security outfits, such as Amotekun and Ebube Agu, may play in the lead up to and during the elections. Number 23, security forces should enhance training for security agents on election duty to control crowds peacefully and support the presiding officer in ensuring appropriate voter and party agents' behavior and ballot secrecy. The government, that is number 24, should resolve the academic staff of the Union of University strike. And this is critical for security, as young people unable to study could be easily recruited into cults, gangs, or other groups that could contribute to electoral violence. And let me say that this delegation's work was funded by the United States Agency for International Development, USAID. Thank you very much for listening.
Is first of all a statement of that commitment. Remember that this delegation, this independent joint delegation from NDI and IRI was funded by the American people through the USAID. So the fact that we're here spending this time to do this shows that commitment. That commitment continues when our plan is to have another pre-election assessment mission that occurs either in November or December of this year. So there will be a group that comes back to assess the progress that's ongoing and to make other recommendations. And then, of course, all of this leads up to the culmination of the much larger, very high-level delegation that we will field for the February presidential election. And so those are continued demonstrations of the commitment that we have. But the work to be done belongs to INEC, belongs to the security forces, belongs to the Nigerian people. Our role is to hopefully be there, again, to continue to offer that support through monitoring and progress reports, and then to be there to observe the presidential election, which, again, we hope, as the INEC chairman said, will be the best election Nigeria has ever had.
Collaboration between different groups and the NDI and the IRI in Nigeria. And it is our view that, you can look through some of our recommendations and approach NDI and IRI, as you have been doing, to carve out areas that you can collaborate with, so that avenue is still open as it has been open before. And in fact, I think that leading up to the next PIM mission, there is more room to work so that when they come, some of the activities that would have been envisaged out of this press conference, will be activities that you will be collaborating with, with the two institutions to take them further. So the room is still open as it has always been open, and you have always, tapped into that collaboration with the two partners, and both of them are seated here. I hope I'm right in what I've said.
Of Nigerian civil society, the vibrancy of Nigerian civil society, and you can go back to the transition from military rule to the democratic dispensation, and the fact that Nigerians recognize that were it not for the resilience of its civil society, democracy would not have returned to this country. And civil society continues to play a very critical role, a pivotal role in all of the reforms, the improvements that we've seen in Nigeria's electoral framework. And you would also be aware of the fact that the improvements that have been adopted by INEC and also by the legislative arm of government that has been enacted into law have borrowed extensively or have benefited extensively from the recommendations of Nigerian civil society organizations and their advocacy and hard work. Now, in the style of our preliminary statement, first I should say this is a preliminary statement, and you see that the way we have formulated our recommendations, we have put more focus on the thematic issues and they're cross-sectorial, because we recognize that on each one of these issues, there are different stakeholders who have responsibility to implement those recommendations. That's why on the face of the document, you may not see a specific bullet point that says to civil society, but when you look at the cross-section of the themes that comprise our recommendations, you would agree that those are themes on which Nigerian civil society is already very active. And our hope is that civil society organizations will look through the recommendations and where they match with their own objectives and their activities would intensify those activities to help make sure that the 2023 elections are inclusive and peaceful and credible. Let me just say also to the lady who posed the question about international commitment, reinforce what our delegation leader, Honorable Laros, said, because you would agree that NDI and IRI, with support from USAID through these past 2.5 decades of Nigeria's new dispensation have been present in this country. And we've appreciated the hospitality that's been shown to our two organizations by the Nigerian people. And in these 2.5 decades, since 1998, 1999, our organizations have worked side by side with Nigerian Democrats to strengthen and deepen the country's democracy. And so that is one manifestation of the kind of solidarity that we hope to bring. And you would also agree that in these encounters, it's basically a question of sharing experiences and sharing ideas and borrowing from each other's success stories, whether it's from Ghana or from Sierra Leone or from the United States or other countries that constitute members of our delegations. And that it's that whole process that has enriched your own efforts to make sure Nigeria can continue to strengthen and deepen its democracy. So we hope that you feel that level of support and solidarity, and that side by side we'll all continue to work collectively to make sure that we can support Nigeria through this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. We're not predicting any such thing, but we did use the word may, if you'll notice in our statement, and it said if the 2023 polls fail to improve upon past elections, Nigerians may lose faith. And I think it's important to recognize that. We wanted to make sure, though, to be clear about how serious this work is. The work of running free and fair elections is really the only way to establish the legitimacy of elected officials. And that's why this work is so crucial, and that's why we care so deeply about it, as I know Nigerian civil society does, and all of the stakeholders that we've met with. So we wanted to make clear how serious this work is in the lead up to the 2023 presidential election. Sir, erodes the credibility of an election. I think that the solutions are numerous. It's everything from a polling location layout, which protects voter secrecy and privacy. It's better training and enforcement of the behavior of party agents. It's also creating a widespread understanding among Nigerian society that that selling your vote is problematic and could have a negative impact on the future of the country. And so I think the solutions are many, but the work lies ahead to reach those solutions. Anyone else?
If I may, just those concerns. I think your question is also a plea to the media and to civil society to integrate this component in their citizen awareness raising efforts, because it is an electoral offense which carries with it 1 year imprisonment or 500,000 naira fine, if I'm not wrong. So please better fact check. And so if in our voter education efforts, civic awareness efforts, we begin to hammer home the message to every Nigerian that by selling your vote or by buying someone else's vote, you could end up in prison for a full year or have to pay that huge fine, I think you'll be a deterrent to those who continue to conduct this illegal activity, and at the same time impress upon the security officers' services to do their job and to arrest and publicly name and shame individuals who engage in this. It's a question of human dignity. It's a question of your constitutional rights, and citizens should not be subjected or subdued to the point where they lose their dignity for just a few naira. Thank you.
We've heard party.
Prepare the Nigerians, whether you are poor or not, to reach that level of discipline wherein you reject vote buying because that is the right thing to do. That is what I can say.
First of all, we observed the BVAS devices working very well in the Osun election that we attended. I think that the only concern that we raised related to those is the scalability. We go from one state, Osun, to, all 36 in the federal capital territory, making sure that that deployment goes well as going through the testing and training. And that's all. It's just a question of making sure that it'll be prepared for the 2023 presidential election. The next thing, as it related to the portal, the only concerns that we truly had from that is that sometimes the photos of the results were not as clear or readable as they need to be. And next is getting it in a digital format, because as you know, if you get from thousands of different polling locations just thousands of different photos, there's no way to add all the numbers up unless you do a ton of manual data entry. And so the idea here is that it's great to have the photos from the polling units of the original results, because that gives you the original evidence signed by the party agents and all of that. That's important. But also to get the digital record that at each of the ward level coalition units, when they enter it in to a spreadsheet, to be able to get those digitally so that you can add all those numbers up would be important as well. But again, the great improvements that they've made are noteworthy, and they should be commended for that. The BVAS has been a great improvement. The portal has been a great improvement, and so we're just working to sort of continue moving forward.
I noticed that in your recommendations, you didn't go to that direction, like what INEC should do to improve on that BVAS and that result portal going forward as it concerns the 2023 general elections.
Well, we did in the recommendations point out that those are things that they should improve, and again, the how is up to them, right? How are they going to go about that? That's why they are the Independent National Electoral Commission, and from our meeting with them, they are dedicated, qualified, and so they'll reach the solutions. But what we were pointing out is sort of broad, big picture things that directions they should move in. And again, our goal was to not make recommendations that aren't achievable. There are many things that we could have added to that for the future, into the next few years. We were talking about recommendations for the next 6 months, and it's a busy time in the lead up to a presidential election. So we wanted to give them the top line things that we think could be worked on and actionable between now and February of 2023.
Now, as it concerns vote buying, do you think that the campaign against vote buying should be left to the media alone, or civil society should also get involved in that campaign?
I think it involves everybody pulling in the same direction, right? Media, civil society, government, law enforcement, the judiciary. Leaders at all levels of Nigerian society should be calling out the corrosive impact that vote buying has. It literally corrodes the trust that people have in their elections. Of course, lying at the root of much of this is problems related to poverty, right? Why do people feel that they need to sell their vote? And so that's a much bigger picture that's far beyond the scope of what our delegation was here to look at. But simple things like improving layout of polling location, or actually using the layout that INEC already requires. They have an example template layout, making sure that each polling location is actually set up to create that privacy, making sure that party agents are held accountable for not engaging in vote buying. I think making sure that people actually see prosecutions occurring for vote buying, but also publicizing that it is illegal, that it comes with potentially 1 year in prison, 500,000 naira fine. That's a big deal, but even bigger than that is the moral implications. And you heard my colleague, Dr. Bernadette Lahai, talk about this. When you sell your vote, you're selling your voice. In a democracy, it's such a powerful thing to have a vote. And to give that away just for a few thousand naira is something that we hope that over time civil society groups, members of the media can impress on the Nigerian people that that's a bad bargain, and that they should use their vote to vote for the best candidate who they think will improve the quality of life for them and their family. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Yep.